A sound like a slow heartbeat echoed through the darkness. Ethan floated between sleep and waking, unsure if the thud came from outside or from the center of his own chest. For a long moment he felt weightless, caught in a dream that would not end. Then a whisper of light slid across his eyelids. He forced them open and met a ceiling that curved like a vast blue shell. Veins of pale silver pulsed gently across its surface, glowing and fading in a steady rhythm. The air smelled faintly of rain and metal. His mind grabbed at memories and found only fragments. A long highway slick with rain, the glare of headlights, the scream of tires. After that, nothing but darkness. He tried to move his hand. It felt heavy as stone. His arm trembled and a dull ache spread through his shoulder. Careful. Human. The voice was soft, musical, almost like water singing against glass. A tall figure leaned over him, shadow breaking the blue light. For a second, fear stabbed through him and he wanted to shout, but his dry throat made only a rasp. The figure stepped closer and the details sharpened. It was not human. Skin like polished silver caught the light and shimmered faintly, as if a gentle moon lived beneath the surface. 4 luminous eyes blinked in slow harmony. A robe of deep green draped from narrow shoulders, moving like leaves in a quiet wind. "You have been in a coma for over 20 of your years," the being said. Each word calm and deliberate. The meaning landed like a hammer. 20 years. Ethan's heart pounded so hard the sound filled his ears. Coma. 20 years? He wanted to ask questions. Where am I? How is that possible? But only a hoarse croak escaped. The creature seemed to understand anyway. "Do not force your voice. Your body has slept a very long time. You are safe here." Ethan shut his eyes again, trying to breathe. The last clear memory returned in flashes. Wet pavement, a sudden blinding light, the lurch of his car, and then the world had collapsed into black. He had expected death, not this strange blue room and this alien guardian. A cool hand, longer and slimmer than any human's, rested lightly on his arm. The touch was steady, not cold. "Your heart is strong," the voice said. "That is good." He opened his eyes. The figure watched him with a patient kindness. Fear loosened slightly, replaced by bewilderment. "Where am I?" His voice cracked like dry wood. "In the haven," the being answered. "A sanctuary between the stars. You are among friends. Stars. Sanctuary." The words drifted through his tired mind like leaves on water. "My family," he whispered. "Earth." The being hesitated, the silver skin around its eyes dimming for a breath. "Rest first. We will speak of all things when your strength returns." Ethan wanted to argue, but exhaustion slid over him like a tide. His eyelids dropped despite his effort to keep them open. The last thing he saw was the gentle shimmer of 4 eyes watching over him as darkness claimed him again. He woke later, minutes or hours. He could not tell. The ceiling glowed a deeper blue now, almost like twilight. Warm air carried a faint hum as if the entire room breathed beside him. This time he could lift his head an inch. Needles of pain shot through his neck, but he kept it up long enough to see more of his surroundings. Walls curved in a perfect circle. Thin strands of light ran through them like rivers under ice. Beside his bed stood a smooth console lit with symbols he did not know. He noticed a window, wide and clear, and beyond it stretched a black ocean filled with stars. More stars than he had ever seen from Earth. They blazed like diamonds scattered on velvet. Some shone with colors he could not name. Green fire, soft gold, distant crimson. The sight stole his breath. This was not any hospital. This was not even his world. A soft chime filled the room. The silver figure entered again, moving with a grace that made no sound. "You wake faster than expected," it said, voice a quiet melody. Ethan swallowed hard. "Who are you?" "I am Lorray," it replied. "Overseer of the haven. I watched over your healing." He tried to push himself higher. His muscles felt like wet sand. "You said 20 years?" "Yes. 20 of your Earth years since we found you drifting near the edges of our charted space. Your vessel was damaged. You were barely alive. Drifting." The word felt foreign on his tongue. "I never left Earth. I was just driving home." Lorray tilted her head, 4 eyes shimmering. "I do not know how you came to the void. We only know that you were there and that you lived. That was enough for us to bring you here." The room swayed as confusion flooded him. Driving home, a car, then somehow space. He gripped the bedding, trying to anchor himself. "My family," he said again, stronger this time. "My parents. My friends. Are they alive?" Lorray lowered her gaze. I sent messages toward your planet. We have heard no answer. I am sorry. The words carved a hollow in his chest. He imagined his mother's warm laugh, his father's steady hand on his shoulder. 20 years. If they had waited, they might be gone now. Friends might have married, grown old, or died believing he was lost forever. Ethan turned his face toward the star-filled window. The vastness outside seemed to echo the emptiness within. He felt a gentle pressure on his shoulder, Laurie's hand, cool and steady. You are not alone, she said softly. Life still flows around you. We will help you find your place again. Her voice carried a quiet strength that steadied him more than he expected. For a moment the terror eased, though grief still burned like a low fire. He closed his eyes, letting the steady hum of the room and the soft touch of the alien overseer hold him. The questions of how and why could wait. For now there was only the strange truth. He had slept for 20 years, crossed a gulf he did not understand, and woken beneath a sky of unfamiliar stars. A faint glow spread across the curved ceiling as Ethan woke again. This time his eyes stayed open longer, letting him see more of the strange room. The walls shimmered like water under moonlight. Soft pulses of blue ran through the floor, matching the quiet rhythm of his own heartbeat. He tried to sit up, but his muscles trembled. Pain, slow and deep, reminded him that his body had been still for far too long. Careful, human, a gentle voice said. Do not rush. The figure stepped closer, tall and graceful. Silver-gray skin reflected the light like polished stone, and 4 calm eyes watched him with concern. The being wore a flowing robe of deep green that shifted like leaves in a breeze. Ethan had never seen a creature like this, yet something in its presence felt steady and safe. I am Lorray, the being said. The words soft but clear, as if shaped by music. I am an overseer of the Haven. You are among friends. Ethan's throat felt dry as dust. Haven? He whispered. A sanctuary, Lorray explained. We travel among the stars to help those in need. You were found adrift, barely alive. We brought you here and kept your body breathing. Ethan blinked, trying to hold on to her words. Memories stirred, rain on the windshield, headlights, a sudden sharp sound, and darkness swallowing everything. Yet Lorray spoke of space, of drifting. None of it fit. How long? His voice cracked. Lorray lowered her gaze, silver eyelids moving slowly. You have been in a coma for over 20 of your years. The number struck like a blow. 20 years. He stared at his own hands, thin, pale, almost unfamiliar. The last time he remembered, he had been 28. Was he nearly 50 now? My family, he said, the words almost a plea. My parents, my friends, are they alive? We sent signals toward the planet you call Earth, Lorray said softly. We searched for answers, but no message has returned. Your world did not answer our call. Ethan's chest tightened. A heavy silence pressed down, heavier than gravity. He imagined his mother's smile, his father's rough laugh, the faces of friends he had not seen in decades. All of them older now, maybe gone. Had they mourned him? Had they moved on, believing he was dead? I don't understand, he murmured. How did I even end up in space? When we found you, your small vessel drifted near the outer rim of our charts, Lorray said. There was damage to its systems. We could not learn how it left your world. Perhaps an accident, perhaps something more. He tried to picture himself in a ship, but only the memory of that rainy night came back. Nothing made sense. Lorray moved to the side of the bed and held out a narrow hand. Long, translucent fingers glowed faintly. Your body is weak, but you are alive. That is the most important truth now. Ethan hesitated, then placed his hand in hers. Her skin was cool and smooth, like glass warmed by moonlight. Over the next days, Lorray returned often. She guided him through careful stretches to wake his sleeping muscles. Each movement sent fire through his limbs, but her calm voice kept him steady. Breathe slowly. Feel the strength return, she would say, her tone a soft melody that eased the pain. Between exercises, she brought food, strange but gentle on his stomach. Clear broth that shimmered like liquid light. Soft fruit that dissolved on his tongue with a sweetness he had never tasted on Earth. Ethan found himself watching her, curious. Lorray's 4 eyes glowed faintly when she laughed, and though her features were unlike any human's, there was kindness in every small gesture. One evening, while they sat near the tall window of the recovery chamber, Ethan stared at the stars beyond. The sky outside was a black ocean filled with unfamiliar constellations. None of the patterns from his childhood camping trips appeared. It feels like the universe forgot me, he said quietly. Lorraine tilted her head, her eyes reflecting the starlight. The universe is vast. It forgets no one. It only waits for each life to find its own path again. Her words sank deep, though the ache inside him remained. He wanted to believe her, yet grief pressed against his ribs. 20 years stolen. Friends married, children grown, parents perhaps buried under soil he would never touch again. Still, he listened to Lorraine's stories. She spoke of the Haven, a great vessel that wandered between stars, rescuing travelers, offering refuge to those lost or broken. She described gardens of silver trees that needed no sun, and rivers that sang when the air grew quiet. Sometimes Ethan closed his eyes as she spoke, letting her voice paint worlds he could barely imagine. For a moment the pain of absence eased, but when silence returned, questions came back sharper than ever. Why had this happened to him? Could he ever return to Earth? Was there anything left to return to? One night, unable to sleep, he asked the question that haunted him most. Do you think my world is gone? Lorraine looked out the window, her expression unreadable. I do not know, Ethan. Stars are born and die. Worlds change, but I have seen many species endure even in darkness. Hope is a powerful force. Do not let it fade. Her words did not promise answers, but they gave him a fragile thread to hold. He clung to it. Day by day his strength grew. He learned to stand, his legs trembling like young trees in wind. Lorraine steadied him, never rushing. When he fell, she offered a hand and a quiet nod. Never pity. And though sorrow still lived in his chest, something else began to grow. A quiet gratitude for the being who had guarded him through years of silence, who had chosen to keep him alive when it would have been easier to let him drift into endless dark. Ethan woke to soft music that seemed to come from the walls themselves. It wasn't like any melody he knew. The sound rose and fell like a slow tide, carrying a calm that settled into his bones. He could stand now, though his legs still shook from weeks of sleep. Lorraine met him at the doorway of the healing chamber. Today she wore a robe the color of a dawn cloud, pale rose with faint silver threads. You are ready to walk, she said, her 4 eyes glowing in the gentle light. Slow steps. The Haven will welcome you. He followed her through a curved corridor where the floor shone like wet stone. Lights pulsed under his feet in a quiet rhythm, matching the soft heartbeat of the ship. Every few steps he touched the wall for balance. The surface felt warm, almost alive. When the hallway opened, his breath caught. They had reached the gardens of renewal. Silver trees arched overhead, their leaves thin as glass, catching light from unseen suns. Pale vines coiled around crystal pillars. Pools of still water reflected star patterns he did not recognize. In the air drifted a scent of sweet rain after summer heat, something both alien and heartbreakingly familiar. It's beautiful, he whispered. It is where travelers find strength again, Lorraine said. This garden sings to the body that it may remember life. He stepped onto the soft ground. The floor felt like living moss, though it shimmered like tiny stars. He bent down, touched it, and a faint warmth spread through his palm. For a time they walked in silence. Only the soft rustle of silver leaves and the distant hum of the Haven filled the air. Ethan felt his heart beating stronger with each step, but a heavier weight settled inside him. The sky beyond the glass walls stretched black and endless. Stars burned in clusters and streams, strange and bright. He searched for a familiar shape, Orion's belt, the Big Dipper, anything from childhood nights lying in a backyard field. But nothing matched. Constellations had shifted or were simply gone. It's like the universe forgot me, he said at last, his voice a low ache. Lorraine stopped beside a silver tree and rested one long hand against its trunk. The universe forgets no one, she answered. But it changes. Time bends, stars are born and die. While you slept, the sky kept moving. Her words sank in like cold rain. 20 years, maybe more if distance and relativity had played their tricks. He imagined Earth spinning on, cities rising and falling, people living whole lives while he lay frozen. I don't even know who I am now, he said. You are Ethan, Lorraine said simply. That is enough. He gave a short, rough laugh. It doesn't feel like enough. Lorraine tilted her head, her 4 eyes glimmering like small moons. Identity is not only memory, it is choice. You still choose who you will be. They continued walking until they reached a wide glass wall that looked into the endless dark. A faint blue planet glimmered far away, just a small orb among millions. Is that Earth? He asked, heart quickening. Laurie followed his gaze. No, a water world we passed weeks ago. Your Earth is far behind, hidden in light years and uncertainty. His throat tightened. He pressed his forehead to the glass, staring into the sea of stars as if he could will his home to appear. But only silence met him. After a while, Laurie touched his shoulder, a gentle weight. Would you like to hear the records we found of your people? We gathered fragments from old transmissions. Hope flickered despite the heavy knot in his chest. Please. She led him to a quiet chamber where a silver console waited. With a motion of her long fingers, streams of sound filled the air. Voices carried across decades in space. Faint music, weather reports, laughter in languages he hadn't heard since his childhood. Ethan closed his eyes and listened. A woman's voice read a story to a child. A deep baritone announced the launch of a satellite. A distant crackle of static, then a human laugh so warm it hurt. Tears burned his eyes. These were echoes, pieces of a world that might already be gone, but they were proof that humanity had lived, had reached for the stars. Is that all? He asked when the sounds faded. For now, Laurie said. Space is wide. Signals drift like seeds. We keep listening. He turned to her, the weight of gratitude and grief tangled in his chest. Thank you, he whispered. Laurie inclined her head. Hope is a sound we must keep alive. Later, as they walked back through the glowing garden, Ethan's mind spun. Each voice from the console had felt like a tiny lifeline thrown across the void. But lifelines fray. Time erased everything. Memories, names, even constellations. He paused beneath a tall silver tree. What if no one remembers me? What if the people I loved forgot I even existed? Memory is not the only way to be known, Laurie said gently. Every action shapes the universe. You breathe and the stars feel it. Her words settled over him like soft rain. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that somewhere, someone he loved still looked at the night sky and felt a small echo of him. They returned to the recovery chamber as the haven dimmed its lights to a cool twilight. Laurie left him with a quiet nod, her eyes warm and steady. Ethan lay on the narrow bed, staring through the window at the endless black. He tried to trace the constellations again, searching for a sign of home. But the sky gave no answers, only the soft glitter of distant suns. Still, when he closed his eyes, the sound of those ancient human voices lingered, a fragile reminder that he was not entirely lost. Somewhere in the shifting universe, humanity had left its mark, and maybe, just maybe, someone was still listening. The next cycle aboard the Haven began with a soft chime that echoed through the silver corridors. Ethan had started to notice how the ship seemed to breathe with sound, gentle tones for morning, low humming for rest. It almost felt alive. He dressed slowly, still unused to the loose white garments Laurie provided. They felt like woven light soft against his skin. His body had grown stronger from daily walks in the shimmering gardens, yet an emptiness lingered that no amount of exercise could heal. When Laurie arrived, her robe glowed a faint blue like starlight caught in water. Your balance improves, she said, her four eyes warm. Today you may explore the listening chambers if you wish. Ethan nodded. I have to. I need to know if anyone from Earth ever sent a message, anything at all. Laurie inclined her head. Then I will show you the archives. The chamber lay deep within the Haven, behind doors that opened with a whisper. Inside, the air was cool and heavy with a quiet reverence, as though it held the weight of thousands of distant voices. Transparent panels curved across the walls, each one glowing with streams of light. Symbols, some sharp, some flowing like water, shifted in patterns Ethan could not read. This is where we keep the echoes, Laurie explained. Signals that wander through space for centuries. Many are only fragments, but sometimes they carry the heart of a people. Her words sent a shiver down his spine. He stepped closer to the largest panel, where faint sparks flickered like falling stars. How do I begin? He asked. Think of what you seek, Laurie said. The Haven will guide the search. Ethan placed a hand on the panel. It felt warm, pulsing softly beneath his fingertips. Earth, he whispered. Human voices. Family. Friends. Anyone. Light swirled inside the panel. At first only static filled the room, a harsh, broken hiss. Then a faint crackle shaped itself into a sound. A woman's laughter spilled from hidden speakers. It was distant and thin, as if traveling through oceans of space, but unmistakably human. Ethan's breath caught. He closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. It wasn't his mother or anyone he knew. Still, it was proof that humanity had spoken to the stars. The laughter faded, replaced by an old broadcast, a calm voice announcing weather over a city he once visited as a boy. Static returned, then another flicker, children singing a simple tune he remembered from school. Ethan pressed his forehead to the panel, tears blurring his vision. They were there, he whispered. They lived. They mattered. Lorraine stood silently beside him, her presence steady as a mountain. Hours passed unnoticed. He searched through countless signals, each one a fragile relic. A scientist reading a report about a Mars mission. A radio host joking about morning traffic. A guitar strumming an old love song. Some recordings were clear, others broken into fragments of syllables and static. But each carried the heartbeat of Earth. At last he found a clip that froze him completely. A child's voice, high, bright, full of unguarded joy, rang out. "Daddy, look at the stars." The words were followed by a burst of static and silence. Ethan's chest tightened until he could barely breathe. The voice was not familiar, yet it pierced him with an ache so deep he had to step back. It might have been anyone. A stranger's child, a voice from decades before his birth. But it felt like home calling across the void. Laurie touched his shoulder lightly. "Does this voice belong to someone you love?" I don't know," he said, wiping at his eyes. "But it's human. That's enough. It means someone was alive. Someone looked at the stars and wondered, just like me." The overseer's 4 eyes softened, their light reflecting faintly on his wet cheeks. "Hope often arrives as a whisper," she said. "Small but strong." When the last echoes faded, Ethan sank into a curved seat at the center of the chamber. He felt both full and hollow. The voices proved that his species had reached far, but they also reminded him how much time had passed, how much he had lost. He pictured his parents. Were they gone now? Had they waited for years, scanning the night sky for a son who never returned? A rush of guilt cut through him. "They must have thought I was dead," he said softly. "They probably held a funeral. Maybe they stopped hoping long ago." Laurie crouched beside him, her silver skin catching the soft light. "Grief moves in many directions," she said. "Perhaps they hoped. Perhaps they found peace. Whatever their path, your life still carries their love. It did not end when you slept." Her words were gentle, but they couldn't quiet the storm inside him. Over the next days, Ethan returned to the listening chamber again and again. Sometimes Lorraine joined him. Sometimes he sat alone for hours, replaying fragments until he could recite every laugh and every broken word. He started to keep a record of the clearest transmissions. With Lorraine's help, he saved them into a small crystal device the size of his palm. It became his treasure, proof that humanity's voice still shimmered somewhere in the dark. But the more he listened, the more restless he grew. The haven felt safe, even comforting, yet he could not shake the hunger to know more. One evening, as the ship dimmed into its twilight cycle, he turned to Lorraine. "These voices, they're beautiful, but they're only ghosts. I need to find the living. I need to know if anyone from my world still breathes." Lorraine studied him for a long moment, her 4 eyes reflecting the silver of distant stars. "The universe is wide," she said at last. "Searches may take a lifetime. The path can wound as well as heal." "I don't care," he said, his voice steady despite the ache in his chest. "I can't just stay here. I have to try." The overseer inclined her head, a slow, graceful motion. "Then we will continue to listen. And when the time is right, we will help you seek the truth." For the first time since awakening, Ethan felt the faint spark of a new purpose. The signals were only the beginning. Somewhere beyond these endless stars, there might still be hearts that beat like his own. He clenched the small crystal of recordings in his fist and looked out through the chamber's wide glass wall. The sky stretched forever, black and shining. "Wait for me," he whispered to the distant earth he could no longer see. "I'm coming to find you." The listening chamber lay quiet, its walls breathing a faint silver glow. Ethan sat alone, staring at the tiny crystal in his palm. Inside it lived the voices of strangers, laughing, singing, reading weather reports from a world that might already be dust. At first, those echoes had felt like lifelines. Now they felt like ghosts. He pressed the crystal to his forehead and shut his eyes. 20 years stolen, maybe more. Everyone he loved could be gone, and he would never even know how or why he had left Earth. The questions circled in his head like a storm that refused to break. The door slid open with a soft hiss. "Ethan," Lorray said, her voice gentle as morning rain. "You have not eaten today." He didn't look up. "Not hungry." The overseer stepped closer. Her robe shimmered dark green in the low light. "You need strength to keep searching." He laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Searching for what? For static and broken songs? For a world that's probably gone?" Lorray tilted her head, her 4 eyes reflecting the pale glow. "Hope is not wasted effort." "Hope?" He turned toward her, anger rising like sudden fire. "Hope is a cruel trick. You saved my life, but for what? To sit here and listen to dead voices? To wonder every second if my family died thinking I abandoned them?" The words came harder, faster. "Why did you even keep me alive? You could have let me drift out there and vanish. Maybe that would have been kinder." For a heartbeat, the room seemed to hold its breath. Lorray's luminous eyes dimmed to a soft gray. "I believed life, even lonely, is better than nothing," she said quietly. "But if I was wrong, tell me, and I will leave you to silence." The sudden sorrow in her voice hit Ethan harder than his own anger. The fire inside him flickered out, replaced by a heavy shame. I didn't mean that," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm just lost. I don't know how to live with so much gone." Lorray stepped closer and placed a cool, steady hand on his shoulder. "Pain speaks loudly when the heart is wounded. I do not take your words as cruelty." Something in her calm broke the tightness in his chest. He lowered his head until his forehead rested against her long fingers. For a while, neither of them spoke. Later, they walked the silver gardens together. The leaves whispered as if sharing quiet secrets. Ethan moved slowly, the soft ground cushioning each step. "I feel like I'm made of 2 people," he said at last. "One who died on a rainy road back on Earth and one who woke up here with nothing." "You are one life," Lorray replied. "But grief can make many shadows." He thought about that as they followed a stream that glowed faintly in the dark. The water sang in tiny notes, a sound both strange and soothing. "I keep imagining them," he continued. "My mother's laugh. My dad fixing the old car. My best friend shouting at a game. And then I remember they might all be gone and it feels like falling through space without a ship." Lorray stopped beside a crystal pillar and looked at him with steady eyes. "Love does not vanish when the body passes," she said. "It lives in you. Every memory is a thread that keeps them real." He wanted to believe that, yet a part of him still raged. "But I can't talk to them. I can't tell them I'm sorry. It's like screaming into a void." "Then speak," she said softly. "The void listens." They stood together beneath the glowing trees, and Ethan closed his eyes. He let the memories come. The smell of coffee in his parents' kitchen. The way his sister used to steal his fries. The echo of his father's voice calling him home. "I miss you," he whispered into the vast quiet. "I'm still here. I don't know how, but I'm here." The words drifted upward like smoke. He didn't expect an answer, yet something in the act of saying them eased the heavy knot inside his chest. Days passed. Ethan kept to a gentle routine. Exercise in the garden, meals of shimmering fruit, hours in the listening chamber. The storm in his mind softened but did not vanish. Some nights he woke sweating, convinced he could hear rain on a car roof, only to find the endless stars beyond the... One evening he found Lorray tending a cluster of pale flowers that glowed. From their centers, "You always know when to give me space," he said quietly. "You needed time with your memories," she replied. "Grief must breathe." He crouched beside her. "I was cruel to you that day. I can't stop thinking about it." "You were in pain," she said. "I have lived many cycles. I have heard pain speak with many tongues. You are not cruel, Ethan. You are alive." Her calm acceptance settled over him like a warm blanket. For the first time since waking, he allowed a small smile. "Thank you," he said. Lorray glanced at him, her 4 eyes shimmering like tiny moons. "You are welcome." That night, as he returned to his room, Ethan paused before the great viewing window. Stars stretched forever, brilliant and unreachable, but the sight no longer felt like a threat. He placed a hand on the glass. "I'm still here," he whispered again, this time not in despair but as a quiet vow. Behind him he heard Lorray's gentle footsteps. "You are stronger," she said. "Maybe," he admitted. "I think I'm starting to believe that living, just living, is worth something even if I never find Earth again." Lorray stood beside him, silent for a long moment. Then she said, "Life is a journey. The path may change, but it is still yours." Ethan looked at the endless black dotted with light. The storm inside him wasn't gone, but it no longer ruled him. He felt a small, steady ember where despair had been. He turned to Lorraine and managed another small smile. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "I will not," she said simply. For the first time since awakening, Ethan felt the quiet strength of hope. Not the fragile, frantic hope of finding the past, but the calm hope of building something new. 1,000 words. You said part 6 words 1,000. Ka lekho aur interesting hona chahiye, aur third person style ma likhni ha, aur simple basic English ka paragraph ma proper emotional aur attractive. Ho ChatGPT said, here's part 6 of the story. About 1,000 words in simple, emotional English and clear third person narration. Part 6. A light in the dark, the days aboard the star station stretched like gentle tides. Ethan woke to the soft hum of alien machinery and the quiet rhythm of his own breath. The ache of lost years still lived inside him, but it no longer ruled every thought. He began to notice small things he had missed before. The way the corridor lights shifted from pale blue to rose when the station's orbit crossed a new star. The faint melodic clicks the garden trees made as they reached for unseen sunlight. The way Lorraine's eyes caught every reflection, holding a dozen tiny universes. One morning she led him to a chamber he had never seen. Its ceiling opened to a dome of endless space. A wide platform jutted outward like the deck of a silent ship. At the center stood a ring of tall crystal spires glowing with soft green light. "What is this place?" he asked. "The Hall of Journeys," Lorraine said. "Here we send messages to the stars. They travel on waves of light. Perhaps they reach no one. Perhaps someone listens." A sudden heat rose in Ethan's chest. "You mean I could send a message to Earth?" Lorraine inclined her head. "If you wish." He stepped toward the spires, heart pounding. "Will anyone hear it after so long?" "I cannot know," she said gently. "But words have power even if they float alone." Ethan placed his hands on the nearest crystal. A warm pulse met his skin. For a moment he stood frozen, unsure what to say. Then the words began to flow. "Mom, Dad, if you can hear this, it's me, I'm alive. I don't know how. I'm sorry I disappeared. I miss the smell of rain, the sound of our old porch steps. I carry you in every breath. I hope you lived happy lives even without me. I love you," his voice cracked. He drew a shaky breath and continued. "To anyone out there, to my friends, my sister, whoever still walks under the sky of Earth, know that I survived. I'm far away, but I'm still human. I remember home. And I'm trying to live." The spires glowed brighter, resonating with each word. When he finished, a soft chime echoed through the chamber. The light rippled outward and vanished into the dark dome above, a thread of hope flung across the universe. Ethan lowered his hands, trembling. "Do you think anyone will answer?" "Perhaps," Lorraine said. "But even if no voice returns, your love now travels among the stars. That is enough." For a long while they stood together in silence, watching the faint shimmer fade into space. In the following weeks, Ethan found new rhythm. He worked in the gardens, learned the delicate art of shaping crystal instruments that sang when touched, and practiced speaking the soft, clicking language of the station's crew. Lorraine remained his closest guide. She told him stories of her people, how they crossed voids to share knowledge, how they believed every being carried a unique light worth protecting. Ethan listened with quiet wonder, feeling his own spirit stretch wider with each tale. One evening they sat beside the glowing stream. He tossed a smooth stone into the water and watched ripples scatter tiny reflections of distant stars. "Sometimes I feel guilty for finding peace here," he said, "like I'm betraying the memory of Earth." "Peace is not betrayal," Lorraine replied. "It is a gift you give to those you love. They would wish you to live, not to suffer." He thought of his parents' faces, of laughter at a kitchen table long gone. "I hope so," he whispered. The station drifted near a vast nebula, a cloud of silver and violet light. Crew members gathered at the observation deck to witness its slow bloom. Ethan stood among them, awe washing over him. "This is beautiful," he said. "It is the heart of a new star," Lorraine explained. "From dust, new suns are born." Ethan felt something shift deep inside, a quiet understanding that life was always becoming, never truly ending. As the nebula pulsed, he remembered the night rain of his old world and the way dawn used to creep across a quiet street. He no longer felt only loss. He felt connection, as if the same force that birthed the star had carried him here. Weeks later, a soft chime woke him in the middle of the station's night cycle. A light blinked on the console beside his bed. His heart leapt. "Lore?" he called. She arrived quickly, her eyes bright. "You hear it too?" The chime sounded again, followed by a faint vibration in the air. "It comes from the Hall of Journeys," she said. They hurried through the quiet corridors. In the great dome, the crystal spires shimmered with a gentle blue. A thin thread of light coiled between them, forming delicate patterns like handwriting made of stars. "What is it?" Ethan whispered. "A response," Lorraine said, wonder in her voice. "But not in any language I know." Ethan stepped closer, heart pounding. The light pulsed in slow rhythm, 3 short flashes, 2 long, 3 short. He felt his breath catch. "It's Morse code," he said softly. Lorraine tilted her head. "Explain." "It's an old human signal system," he said. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. "That's SOS, a call for help." His knees almost gave way. Someone out there somewhere had heard him. "Someone is alive," he whispered. "Someone heard me." The spires pulsed again, repeating the pattern, as if reaching across an impossible distance to hold his words. Lorraine placed a steady hand on his arm. "Then the light has found another light," she said. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. He didn't know if the signal came from Earth, from a ship, or from a distant outpost of humanity he had never known. It didn't matter. For the first time since waking, he felt not just alive but connected. Later, standing before the dome of stars, he whispered, "I'm not alone anymore." Lorraine's voice was soft beside him. "You were never alone, Ethan. You only needed to see the thread." He turned toward her and smiled through tears. "Thank you for everything." Her eyes shimmered with quiet warmth. "Your journey is still unfolding. Follow the light." Ethan looked back at the pulsing spires, the silent promise of a distant reply. Hope no longer felt like a fragile dream. It felt like a path, bright and endless, waiting for his next step. The blue glow of the crystal spires still shimmered through the station's wide windows when Ethan woke. For a long moment he lay still, listening to the quiet pulse of light that had carried a human message across the dark. The memory of the Morse code, 3 short, 2 long, 3 short, echoed in his chest like a heartbeat. Someone out there had heard him, someone human. He rose and dressed quickly. The corridors felt different today, as if the whole station breathed with a shared excitement. When he entered the Hall of Journeys, Lorraine was already waiting. Her robes gleamed silver under the starlight pouring through the dome. "The signal continues," she said softly. Her 4 eyes sparkled like tiny suns. More pulses, more patterns. "It is steady." Ethan stepped closer to the spires. The light flickered again. Short, short, long. His throat tightened. "They're answering," he whispered. "They're really out there." He rested his palms on the cool crystal. The spires warmed under his touch, and faint vibrations hummed through his skin like the tremor of a distant engine. "Can we send another reply?" he asked. Lorraine nodded. "Yes, we can match the rhythm." Ethan swallowed hard and began tapping his own pattern. Alive. Human. Safe. He spoke the words aloud as he tapped, even though the spires only carried the code of light. When the message left, a faint wave of blue drifted upward and disappeared into the endless dark. He stared after it until his eyes ached. Hours passed in a soft hush. Ethan and Lorraine remained near the spires, sharing quiet conversation. They spoke of the long years she had kept watch, of the silent faith she held that life was worth saving. Even when the universe offered no proof, Ethan listened, grateful for her presence. Finally, the crystals shimmered again. A slow pattern of flashes unfolded. Long, short, short, long. Ethan's heart leapt. "It's coordinates," he said. Breathless, "They're giving a location, a meeting point." Lorraine's expression brightened. "A beacon. They invite you." A swirl of emotions rose inside him. Hope, fear, longing. 20 years had passed since Earth. He might find a world transformed, or people who barely remembered the time he came. But the chance to see another human face again pulled at him with irresistible force. "I have to go," he said. Lorraine's gaze held him steady. "Then we prepare," she replied, simply. The next days were a quiet storm of planning. The station's crew, a small, Graceful species of soft-skinned beings gathered to assist. They checked star maps, calculated travel windows, and refitted a small vessel for human needs. Ethan trained with them, learning the basics of navigation, the alien controls, and emergency systems. At night, he often found himself at the observation window, staring at the infinite scatter of stars. Excitement coursed through him, but so did an ache he could not ignore. Lorre joined him one evening as the nebula's faint silver light washed over them. "You are restless," she said. "I'm torn," he admitted. "I want to go. I need to. But leaving here, leaving you, feels like losing another home." Lorre placed a slender hand on his arm. "Home is not a single place," she said, gently. "It is the connections you carry. You will take this home with you, as you carry the memory of your first world." He looked at her, eyes stinging. "I don't know how to thank you for everything." "You already have," she replied, her voice like soft rain. "You chose life. You chose to hope. That is thanks enough." The day of departure arrived like a quiet dawn. The small vessel waited in a docking chamber, its silver hull reflecting the glow of countless stars. Crew members offered soft songs of blessing, their voices weaving through the air like threads of light. Ethan stood with Lorre at the airlock. Neither spoke at first. "Finally," he said, "I don't know what I'll find out there. Maybe Earth, maybe a colony, maybe just another signal. But I'll keep the promise I made to live, to remember." Lorre's eyes shimmered with deep calm. "You walk a path of many lights. Whatever you find, you are never alone." Impulsively, Ethan stepped forward and embraced her. Her tall frame bent gracefully, and for a long breath they stayed like that, human and alien. Two lives bound by quiet understanding. "Goodbye, Lorre," he whispered. "Not goodbye," she said softly. "Until we meet again among the stars." The ship eased away from the station with a gentle hum. Through the small window, Ethan watched Lorre and the crew grow smaller, their forms shining like distant lanterns. He raised a hand in silent farewell. Ahead lay the endless black, dotted with infinite points of light. The coordinates from the Morse message glowed on the console, a star system several jumps away. He felt the weight of his journey, the lost years, the grief, the healing, settle into something steadier. He was no longer a man drifting without purpose. He was a traveler carrying two homes in his heart. As the ship entered the dark sea of space, Ethan whispered a quiet vow. For Earth, for Lorre, for every voice that reaches through the dark, I'm coming. Hours later, the first jump engaged. Stars stretched into luminous rivers. Ethan watched them blur and felt no fear. He thought of his parents' laughter, of Lorre's calm wisdom, of the endless possibility waiting ahead. The ship steadied in a new sector, and the console chimed softly. Another signal blinked across the screen, stronger now, closer. A human voice, crackling but clear, filled the cabin. "Whoever you are not alone." Ethan closed his eyes, tears warm on his cheeks. For the first time in decades, he heard the living sound of his own kind. It was not the end of his story, but the beginning of a new chapter. He opened his eyes to the boundless dark, a small smile breaking through. "Copy that," he whispered to the stars. "Not alone." The ship moved forward, a single bright spark carrying hope across the endless night, a human light among countless others finding its way home.